Support WrestleTalk!
Donate on Patreon.
Braun Strowman's first WWE Universal title win in this fantasy booking warfare competition where I, Oli Davis, present one scenario and Luke Owen, who is right here, will present another scenario. You vote on what's better. We are going to flip a coin to decide who goes first. This is a ramble-free episode of the show. If you want all the rambling, click on the description... Click on the link in the description below so you can go to the podcast version where there'll be quite a lot of rambling either side. So, who goes first, heads or tails?
Queens for Queen, heads.
It's tails. I'm going to go first. So I'm going to start off mine with an apology because it's kind of like bringing back CM Punk. CM Punk returns is a way to automatically win, really. Roman's turning heel in my one.
Oh.
Which is, so let's just get out of the way. It's happening, but I think this is the best way to build Braun Strowman as his first Universal title win. So,
I may as well not go.
WrestleMania. Braun pins Miz in an Intercontinental Championship 4-way with Rollins and Balor in there as well to start off this momentum. So Braun Strowman is your Intercontinental Champion coming out of WrestleMania. Roman Reigns in the main event, sort of Brock Lesnar Big Show style. Paul Heyman sides with Reigns. Reigns turns heel, beats Brock for the title, who leaves the company. I'm sorry. Raw after Mania the following night, so this is the next night on Raw. Heyman says that Reigns has done everything to reach the top, and every time he gets there, he is knocked back down again, whether it be by Seth Rollins, whether it be by the Authority. The hard part isn't the revolution, it's staying in power and keeping it afterwards. And more importantly, keeping that power within the family. Bringing back a faction from quite a while ago. He then puts out a call to all the brands who want to do better in WWE. Don't worry if you're on SmackDown, because the family will have a word. I'm getting kind of a main event mafia vibe from the TNA faction. So as they leave on this Raw After Mania show, Braun passes them like ships in the night. Roman doesn't back down. Roman squares off to him. Braun, Bludgeon Brothers style, just walks ahead, eyes fixed to the ring for his squash match next. And Heyman sort of ushers Roman away, saying, no, he's not worth it, as Paul Heyman does so brilliantly. So now the next pay-per-view is Backlash, as it always is. So Braun Strowman eventually has a rematch with Miz on an episode of Raw for the Intercontinental title. Braun loses, but via countout. So the Intercontinental title doesn't change hands. This is because the Miztourage keep on getting involved, so Braun chases them off into the crowd, and Miz afterwards is screaming on the mic like, I want a fair rematch. Being a real two-faced, hypocritical heel here. I want a fair rematch where Braun can't just cheat and run away and get a count-out loss like a coward. Of course, Braun isn't a coward. Miz is the coward. Braun, incensed by this, looking at Miz, just destroys Dallas and Axel, writes them off TV, and then he chases Miz off. Later on, this is in the weeks between the pay-per-views, the Usos join the family. They're one of the people, and Miz, now without his Miztourage, he also joins the family. But Reigns and the Usos are always kind of making sly digs at him. Various other heels try and get into the family, and the family entertains it for a bit, but they will ultimately just squash these other heels, just to sort of put over their dominance and kind of bullying nature on Raw. And they also all travel around in Roman's luxury tour bus. This is the family, they've got the money, and this is like where all their backstage interviews are filmed, so it really gives it a different vibe. And they force Angle to give the Miz, because Miz is in the family, to give him an Intercontinental title rematch against Strowman with a Falls Count Anywhere stipulation. This is, that they argue it's because, Braun went into the crowd last time, but really, it's so they can all get involved. Miz is concerned about Strowman, but Reigns tells him to just trust in the family. So Backlash, Intercontinental title match, it's Strowman versus The Miz, Falls Count Anywhere. Strowman loses the Intercontinental title belt because of the family, and more specifically, their latest member, Samoa Joe. There is a theme here, and Miz is the odd one out, yet he is the one with the IC belt. The next night on Raw, they're celebrating. The family are in the ring doing their sort of shtick, and Reigns introduces Joe as a made man. He's a made man. He's in the family now. Heyman says these aren't just good guys or bad guys. They're the guys. But Reigns just has an idea. It just popped into his head. Miz should defend his Intercontinental title right now. And apparently before, he's already made this match, actually. He bullied Angle into booking Joe versus Miz. So Joe is going to take on the Miz. Miz is like, what? Miz is in his suit. Joe's in his suit. Joe just chokes Miz out. They get the referee down, and Joe wins the Intercontinental title. Just like that the next night. This is just, the bullies are out of control. Miz now goes off the SmackDown with his tail between his legs. So he's written out, really. Angle starts to try and enlist Braun's help to overthrow the family, saying they've just running roughshod on Raw. But Braun just wants his Intercontinental title. You know, he's not in it to help Angle or for the greater good of Raw. He just wants that Intercontinental title back and to smash some skulls in. So Kurt books Braun Strowman versus Samoa Joe in a match at Money in the Bank for the Intercontinental title. And the family are trying to get out of this. They're bullying Angle, including some tense Joe and Angle stare downs, recalling the Impact feud of old. And the stipulation they get is that Joe and Braun aren't allowed to touch each other before the actual match, which, you know, really benefits Joe because Braun can't touch Joe, but all of the family members can touch Braun. So that's the thinking there. So we've got the Money in the Bank Intercontinental title match. Braun and Joe have a heavy-hitting heavyweight slogfest, just taking lumps out of each other. Heyman's interfering lots at ringside, and then 10 minutes in, there's a table set up between the ring and the entrance ramp, and Strowman's being beaten down on the other side of the ring, but then Braun, in a last-ditch effort, whips Joe across the ring with such force. You know, that old Irish whip where you sort of fall down, you put so much force into it, that Samoa Joe hits the ropes. The ropes don't snap, but they come off the ring, and Joe goes through the table. This is your, oh my God, Braun moment. I don't think it's ever happened, having the ropes break like that. And the referee falls to the outside, so this is where Braun then carries Joe back into the ring, but there's no referee. The Usos jump him. There's a brief beatdown, but Braun comes back. He turns round into a brass knuckle Superman punch. This is the family's ultimate weapon right here. And Heyman puts Joe's arm on Braun. Ref comes in to count the pin. Joe retains. Next night on Raw, this is the build to the Extreme Rules now. Braun is just furious, and he wants Reigns more than anything. And he's shouting at Kurt. And Kurt says, look, if you want Roman and that title, you need to overthrow the family. It's just insane how much power they have here on Raw. And Roman wants nothing to do with Strowman. So, Angle says, in exchange, I will put my job on the line. And Paul Heyman's kind of like, you should take this because I could take Angle's job if he gets it. Angle puts his job on the line for that Braun title shot because Kurt sees this is the only way for Raw to get out from underneath the family. So this all becomes Angle and Strowman as a team. This is your Extreme Rules main event. Angle and Strowman versus Joe and Reigns tag match. The Raw General Manager and Braun versus the Intercontinental Champion and Universal Champion. Remember, these are dual-branded pay-per-views now, so you don't really need to separate if anything, it's going to be better for our bottoms for these to be shorter shows. So the stipulation here is if Braun or Angle are pinned, that means Angle loses his job. So Angle's put loads on the line. But the other way, Braun, whoever he pins, so it has to be Braun doing the pinning, which makes it harder for the babyfaces to win anyway. If he pins Joe, he gets a shot at the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam. If he pins Roman, he gets a shot at the Universal title. So so Roman really is at least risk here. The idea is Joe would come in and take the fall if needs be. But Extreme Rules, Braun manages to pin Roman to set up that SummerSlam title match, and Kurt spins off into a Samoa Joe Intercontinental title feud. That's a bit mouth-watering, isn't it? So here's the SummerSlam build. So I haven't done the whole thing because we've got a time limit now. But 2 weeks out, the opening family promo of Raw, they're all, we're such good heels, we've beaten all these people. Oh, but who's that on the Titantron? It's Braun driving something. It's the tour bus. It's the family's super expensive luxury tour bus. And throughout the night, it's Braun driving it around, segments cutting from the live feed like Stone Cold bits of old, and he is intentionally driving this thing bad. He is knocking over bins, he is crashing into the sides of cars. Roman and the family are just going crazy in the ring, falling over and taking bumps from out of nowhere. And you don't have to do these things. Just put down a few ideas in the cuts back to him throughout the night. Strowman's got some livestock in there. Just some goats and some chickens. Another time he cuts back, he's singing along to the radio. We know he's got a great voice. But then maybe he's going through the family's stuff in the tour bus. Some embarrassing underwear. I don't know. There's loads of stuff you can do there. But the final segment of the show is a Roman Reigns match. Maybe let's just say it's against Rollins. And it's interrupted by the Titantron. Braun is now at a sort of Grand Canyon-like place. And the tour bus is just sitting there on the cliff edge. And Braun's like, now I'm going to destroy something you love. And he pushes the tour bus off the cliff and it explodes with proper big explosions underneath. It doesn't just fall and clatter, it properly explodes. And the family are going crazy. Roman's going crazy. Rollins gets the surprise roll-up win. Now on the go-home show, the family have locked Braun Strowman up somehow backstage with some chains. Usos penitentiary gimmick. While they destroy Kurt in the ring. This is your hot go-home angle for SummerSlam that Sunday. Brass knuckles, Superman punches and everything. Angle's getting blooded up because, of course, he has the Samoa Joe match at SummerSlam 2. Braun bursts out of his chains, though. The family is scared, but Roman stays in the ring. You don't want to book Roman as a chicken S-word. He's going to stand out. I'm going to fight you, Braun. Braun comes down and they have a bit of a scuffle. Then Strowman goes face to face with Roman. The family come back in and all stand side by side at Roman, that beautiful hard cam shot where the ring split in two. A blooded Angle stands back up and stands by Strowman, and then just a huge brawl starts. Locker room emptied, security guards, loads of baby faces who want to get their own back on the family. They're all out there. Let's see what happens this Sunday at SummerSlam. That's how Raw goes off air. At SummerSlam, Joe wins, choking out Angle. So Angle is sent to a local medical facility. Braun's got one man down. The Usos win as well. They still hold the tag team championships, or I don't know, whatever they've got. So all of the family are still in the building for the main event. But after some shenanigans, the referee banishes them from ringside. So for a moment, you've got Braun and Roman just in a singles match, having a spot-filled match because that's Braun's strength. Through announcers' tables, brawling through the crowd. But then at various points, the Usos run back in, Joe runs back in and sort of takes out Strowman. There is a ref bump. Heyman throws Roman the brass knuckles on the outside. But then, this is all in the crowd, from out of nowhere, a hooded Brock Lesnar comes back and takes out Reigns. So, and then he takes out Joe and the Usos too. That's all Braun was there for. And he leaves to build up some stuff later on. And then Braun drags Roman back into the ring. He rolls Roman into the ring. But by the time Braun's back in the ring, Roman's up, hits him with a spear. But Braun hops right back up as Roman's celebrating, hits a running power slam. It's a double down. The crowd are going crazy now, and then they get up. Yay, boo, yay, boo. Eventually, Roman Superman punch. Braun just stands there, screams back in Roman's face, and picks up Roman, running power slams. Keeps hold of the arm, picks him back up again. Running power slam, picks him back up again. Third running power slam, win! Braun Strowman is your new Universal Champion.
Well, I suppose I've got to go now. So I taken a bit of a different tact with yours, and actually taking an angle I thought you were going to take. But here we go. So, it is after WrestleMania, Roman obviously wins the Universal Championship. Bray Wyatt loses to Matt Hardy again due to the return of Brother Nero and sort of like the reunion of the Hardy Boys, and Braun is screwed out of the Intercontinental Championship. So basically, in the sort of the 4 weeks between Mania and Backlash, Bray hasn't been seen on TV, and neither has Braun. Braun just hasn't been around. He's just been off stewing somewhere else, I suppose. And Roman starts a brand new feud with Seth Rollins, who wants his shot at the Universal Championship. At Backlash, Braun returns during the main event and ruins Roman versus Seth, running power slams, destroying people at ringside, doing his usual Braun nonsense. Okay, so now we're actually starting in the build to Braun winning the Universal Championship. So Kurt Angle announces on Raw that despite their injuries suffered the night before, Roman and Seth will finish their main event of Backlash here tonight on Monday Night Raw. So at the main event, Seth comes out doing his usual Seth Rollins entrance, but who should attack him from behind but Braun Strowman once again, who just runs out from the back and starts beating down Seth. Roman comes out to try and stop him, but also gets destroyed by Braun Strowman. Both Seth and Roman try to attack Braun, but he fights both of them off, and he lays them out with power slams in the middle of the ring. Angle comes out with security trying to stop Braun, but he beats up those security guards and tosses them hither and yonder, all the while screaming, "I want my title shot." And he walks up to the announcer's desk and he takes that out too, Angle screaming for him to stop. The next week, Braun is barred from the building. Kurt Angle and Stephanie McMahon have just said, we can't have Braun come into this building. We need to have this Roman versus Seth main event, which they do, and Roman wins, LOL. But at the start of the show, Angle is actually backstage with Stephanie, and Stephanie tells him that, if Braun's going to be showing up, I'm not going to be here. I'm too afraid to come to work. I've had complaints from wrestlers who are also afraid of an unsafe work environment. We've got to get this guy under control. We can't just have him coming in here ruining matches, destroying announcers' tables, frightening poor Michael Cole. We've got to get him under control. And Kurt Angle says, it's okay, I've got a plan, but I need to go and speak to someone. And then throughout the week, Angle posts up video clips of him on Twitter, of him sort of traipsing through these woods, saying that I'm on my way to speak to the person I'm trying to find. With the final video, with a shot of the sign that says, Wyatt Compound this way. Week 3. There are security guards outside the building waiting for Braun to show up because Braun's not barred from the building this week. He can't keep that up. He's a paid employee. He's got to go to work. He's got to make a living. But Braun obviously storms his way into the building because he's Braun Strowman, and that's what he does, looking once again to destroy Roman Reigns and gets his hands on the Universal Championship. Roman comes out and he puts the belt down in front of him. Roman obviously hearing that Braun, he just storms down the ring, puts the belt in front of him. He's grabs the microphone and says, Braun, if you want to get the title shot, you got to come and take it from me. So Braun makes his way to the ring, fire in his eyes, full of piss and vinegar, dragging the body of Seth Rollins, who he had beaten up off screen, just dragging him by the leg, and just leaves the carcass down and just points to him and says, this is what's going to happen to you, Roman. You make the challenge, this is what's going to happen. So Braun gets into the ring and he lays out Roman with power slams, but before he hits them, we get the blop sound effect. The lights come back up and Bray Wyatt has returned to Raw and he's in the ring with Braun Strowman. Strowman goes for him, but Bray just stands tall and puts his hand up to stop him. I'm almost thinking like Chris Pratt in Jurassic World. Just sort of puts it under, but gets him under almost his control. And Braun just stops and sort of stares at Bray, a little bit confused, like a big dumb giant that he is. Just a little bit confused by him. This is the man who brought him into the WWE. And Bray, from his jacket, reaches in and he pulls out the sheep mask. Braun, confused, takes the mask off of him. Raw goes off the air. Week 4, Bray Wyatt cuts a promo from the Wyatt compound and he reveals that after he lost the Great War, he needed to re-find himself. He needed to go back to the Wyatt compound, and when he got there, what he found was that there were souls waiting for him there. There were people who had been waiting for Bray Wyatt to return. People need me, he screams. He reveals that Kurt Angle has made a deal with the devil. He knew that only one man could contain this monster, and that man is me. So he said, people need me, Braun needs me. And he reveals that part of this deal to tame the monster is that Braun gets his Universal Championship shot. But Bray says that we're not going to get it now. We're going to get it when the time is right. So over the next month, we actually don't see Braun or Bray on TV. We just see vignettes from the compound of Bray doing his preacher gimmick once again, right? So getting rid of all of the magic shtick and just going back to being the Bray Wyatt that we fell in love with in NXT, where he's just preaching to people and people are listening to him. And in that group of people listening is Braun Strowman. And he's just sitting there and he's just got this glass-eyed, vacant expression, just staring at Bray, completely under his spell. So now we're in the build to SummerSlam. And the Hardy Boys come out and they cut one of their, wacky promos. And they issue an open challenge to any tag team that they think that they can beat their broken brilliance or whatever it is. Blep! Bray and Wyatt come to the ring and the match is on. Bray isn't on the apron, however. He just stands at ringside barking orders at Strowman. And being that he's Braun Strowman, he flattens both the Hardy Boys and pins them both at the same time. Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt are now the Raw Tag Team Champions. And after the match, Bray says that he had his revenge for the Great War, but his monster doesn't just want these belts, he wants to get the Universal Championship, and he's going to have that match at SummerSlam. Later in the night, Roman Reigns burst into Kurt Angle's office and said that Strowman has to pay for what he did to the Hardys, for what he's done to Seth, for what he's done to everyone on Raw since he's been here, and he will defend his Universal Championship at SummerSlam against Braun Strowman. Bray Wyatt promised that Braun would win, and win he does. Braun destroys Roman. Roman gets a little bit of offense in, but not a lot. This is almost Brock Lesnar, John Cena, SummerSlam, just running straight through him, hither and yonder, power slams galore. Braun Strowman wins the Universal Championship, with again Bray Wyatt at ringside screaming instructions. So Braun hits the power slam 4 times and he wins. But as JoJo is announcing the winner, Bray Wyatt grabs the microphone and title and announces that the new Universal Champion is Bray Wyatt. I own the monster, I own the championship. So the gimmick is that Bray is he claims to be the Universal Championship, but Braun does all the fighting for him. So Braun is recognised as the champion, but in Bray's mind, he's the Universal Champion, and Braun is just his weapon of destruction. So around all of his matches, Bray is at ringside, clutching the belts like it's his precious, like it means everything to him to hold this belt. And every time that Strowman wins, Bray gets into the ring and he poses with the belt. And when he cuts his promos about being unstoppable, no one can he cuts promos about how he's unstoppable and no one can outsmart him. But every time he holds the belt up to pose, Braun just looks at the belt and always looks at Bray, hinting that this is not a situation that's going to last forever. So now we're in the build to Survivor Series. So the first build for the first week in the build to Survivor Series, that Seth Rollins sets himself up as the new challenger to Bray/Braun, looking to get revenge for what happened to him earlier in the year. Rollins says that Bray thinks that no one can outsmart him, but he didn't factor in the architect. So during a match where Braun Strowman is just destroying a jobber, as Braun is wont to do, Seth Rollins jumps the barricade and knocks Bray Wyatt down, and he grabs the Universal Championship and he throws it into the ring and he runs up the ramp. So Braun turns around and picks up the title, thinking that it was Bray that threw the title in for him to use. But as he picks it up, he just stares at it. And it almost feels like that little bit of like that Bray Wyatt manipulation is starting to wear off. And it's just like, as soon as he picks up that belt, he's like, no, I'm the champion. And I'm being used here. But as he's still staring at it, this jobber, seeing his opportunity, tries to get a little attack in on Braun. That doesn't really work out for him. Braun, kills the jobber, as he likes to do. And as the jobber attacks him, that sort of like gets Braun back into his trance and back into his killing mode. Braun power slams the jobber and he pins him. Bray gets into the ring and he grabs the belt back off of Braun from there and he clutches it to him against, staring it holding it tightly. And Braun is staring a hole through him. And Seth is on the ramp, just pointing to his head, saying that I will outsmart you, Bray Wyatt. Week 2, Bray is in the ring with Braun, back in the mask. Braun is back in the mask, and he's cutting a promo on Seth. And he talks about how he thinks Seth Rollins can outsmart him. Look again, the monster is back under my control, and so is the Universal Championship. But as he's talking, the Titantron comes on, and it's Seth. Seth doesn't say anything. He just does a little chuckle to himself, and once again taps his forehead to say, mate, I've got you here. And then a video plays of Braun destroying his opponents, and every time it shows like a clip of Braun power slamming someone, it cuts to Bray Wyatt holding the championship. And it's just Seth's little subtle way of trying to get through to Braun. And when the light comes back on in the arena, Braun has taken his mask off. and he's staring at Bray, and he's staring at the title, and Wyatt is shouting at Braun to stop and trying to get him back under his control, and he's holding his hand up to try and get him back under his spell. Braun stops and he thinks. And in that moment, the glassy-eyed comes back, the vacant stare comes back on, and he puts the mask back on, and Bray laughs, and he grabs his title, and he celebrates, and Braun just, as he's Bray's celebrating, he just slightly tilts his head a little bit, Jason Voorhees style, saying that, I don't think that, I don't think I'm fully under this spell just now. And then we are week 3 of this build. Bray and Braun are defending their tag team championships against Balor Club, and during the match, Seth again hops the guardrail, because remember, Bray doesn't actually fight in any of these matches. Bray just stands there at ringside holding the championship belt. So Seth hops the rail again, and he clocks Bray hard in the side of their head and just sort of knocks him a little bit loopy, just completely knocks him to the floor. And then he grabs Bray and he rolls him inside the ring. And a groggy Bray just sort of gets to his feet, doesn't really know where he is. And that's sort of like in ring instinct. He just sort of gets out of the ring and grabs the tag rope because that's what he thinks he's meant to be doing. And Braun, as he goes into charges into the corner, Bray just groggily tags him. He's not really thinking about what he's doing. He's more or less knocked out. Bray is in the ring for the first time since WrestleMania as an in-ring competitor. Braun. Sorry, where I am. Braun jumps off the apron. Balor Club hit the Magic Killer, and they win the tag team championships. Braun gets back into the ring, and he picks up Bray. He picks up his mentor, trying to almost console him. Wyatt regains himself and realizes what has just happened. He grabs a microphone and he shouts to Seth, who's still on the ramp. Wyatt says, "You can't outsmart me. I control the monster. I control the stupid beast. He's mine. You can't outsmart me." And Rollins gets a microphone and he shouts back about the Universal Championship match. He says hey, if we want to settle this, let's do this for the Universal Championship. And Wyatt asks him if you've ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. And then he shouts, "I challenge you to a Universal Championship match." And Rollins chuckles, taps his head and says, "Well, here's the thing, Bray. I'm not the champion. Braun is." And Bray suddenly realizes what he's done. He has been outsmarted. Braun just picks up Bray, power slams him, kills him all several times. The spell has finally been broken, and he will face Bray Wyatt at Survivor Series for his Universal Championship. And when he wins, he will finally be the Universal Champion.
Oh, that was a doozy. So, is that the correct word? Doozy?
Yeah, I think so.
Doozy's like
doozy.
a poo-poo.
Yes.
So, click the eye above our heads to vote for which one you preferred. Myself's, mine, or Luke's in the ultimate... I can't speak. It takes so much out of me, these booking warfares.
I know, and we are going to save all of our post-match analysis for our version of Talking Smack, which is the podcast. You can hear mine and Oli's kind of breakdown of our stories, how we came up with them, our sort of feelings on each other's bookings. But I will say this: I am not confident.
No, I did a lot.
I did say to you when I came in, I was not confident about mine at all. I felt quite good about it this morning, but the more I wrote it and the more I read it back, I was like, I've lost all faith in this now.
So click the eye above our heads if you haven't already. If you can't see the eye, go onto the desktop version of YouTube, the web browser, and you should be able to see it there.
You can see it on phones as well. The
yeah.
eye will always be there on your phone screen. Just tap that and it'll give you all of the links that we've linked to and the poll at the bottom.
Yeah, so do that. But that is all we've got time for today. We'll be back on Wednesday with the Raw vs. SmackDown review. Click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleRamble or WrestleTalk news. I've been Oli Davis, this has been Luke Owen, and that was Fantasy Booking Warfaring.